We now go to the Gospel of Philip, which is probably, well, definitely not the Gospel that you'll find in the Bible, one of the ones that was removed. And the reason it was removed was because it was greatly Gnostic, and it was the teaching of the Gnostics that the individual must discover the divine consciousness within themselves that brought them into direct conflict with the Orthodox Christians, the Catholic bishops, of course, who believed that salvation came from a belief in the belief as interpreted by the apostolic authorities, which was Paul and Paul's people, and belonging to the church. What they say? They said, basically, the Gnostics believed that you could do it yourself, and the Catholic Church felt that you could get salvation only through them. That's basically what it says. They said that the Gospel of Philip was appeared to be very early, according to Professor Gillis Quispel, whom we talked about earlier, claimed that the Gospel of Philip, which he discovered, became directly from the Jerusalem church under the leadership of James the Just, who was the brother of Jesus. This was part of the original Aramaic sayings of Jesus, written soon after 50 A.D. Now, you understand that what they're saying there is that it's 50 A.D. is pretty early. I mean, Christ did his preaching in the 30s in his age, so 40s, 50s is only 20 years. Anyway, from the Wikipedia Free Encyclopedia, it says the Gospel of Philip was one of the Gnostic Gospels of the text of the New Testament Apocrypha, Apocrypha, dated to around the 3rd century, but lost in the modern times until an Egyptian man rediscovered it by accident, buried in a cave near Nag Hammadi in 1945. That was the caves that they found the jars that had the things that they used to see if the New Testament and the Old Testament were valid, because the containers, the pages, contained the Old and New Testament information. To the Gnostics, the essence of the ministry and the teachings of Jesus was how to awaken the soul to the divine, the God within us, and its ability to perceive things that are spiritual. The spiritual being was the person awakened out of the slumber of what he was doing every day and into the real life of the kingdom of God. This was to be a transformation of consciousness in which they had to face the inner world of their own soul with the act of metanoia, which is supposed to be turning around. So they felt that the ability to gain their spiritual awakening on their own by turning around and facing the inner world of their own soul was the way to go. The Gnostics were also called many different names. Research indicates that almost all of those who were persecuted by the Roman Church were in fact of the Gnostic sect, but were given different names so the common man would think that each group persecuted by the church was a different group altogether. They were called Gnostics. You can read it there. Other names, all manner of other heresies and schisms, as they were so condemned in different times. You can see what they're saying is they were named different names so that the people in the church didn't realize it was all the same Gnostic religion they were condemning. You must also see the irony in this understanding in that Jesus' main teachings were Gnostic, and the Roman Catholic Church, made up of Paul's bishops and the Emperor of Rome, condemned that very religion. We have also covered religion thoroughly in Book 5, so I hope that you can read it and understand how terribly twisted it has become. The twist is caused by the greedy overchargers so they can get your money. Yet all the religions ascribe to the golden rule in some form or another. We could go back to the one religion if you were to use the common sense instead of the desired advertised to division that we're now seeing. Since all of them said the golden rule in some form or other was what had to be followed, and you can see that it's not being, but that was the Gnostic interpretation back then, and it is, and the Catholic Church leaders, the hierarchy, condemned them and persecuted them and did all kinds of what we call horrible things to people who were them, if you will. Over and over, two things that I have read and seen, the definition of them. One of them was the Gnostic leaders were poor people in dirty robes, but out helping the common people. And the Catholic the hierarchy with all their golden regalia and clothing and staffs and stuff didn't like them, because the problem was that the people loved the Gnostics and didn't have much use for the Catholic hierarchy. I've seen that over and over again. It's just one of those things that you'll have to do the research and you'll have to see that it's true or not. Your choice. To go on then to use a useful common sense understanding, we give you this. If there is a major disagreement understanding in any part of any religion with another religion, then one of them has to be wrong, or both of them have to be wrong. And we told you that before. It's just common sense. However, both of them can't be right. That means that one of them is wrong. And in the conflict, what you have to deal with is one of them is wrong. Now, you're always told it's the other guy. But the other guy's preacher, priest, religious leader is telling him that you guys are wrong, you see. So what you have to understand is that somebody's got to be wrong. They can't all be right. That's what you have to deal with. Now, who's wrong and who's right, we're not going to go into that. But, we'd like to have you just sit down and think about it. Somebody has to be wrong. It could be you. Still in thinking about this irrationally, anyone can see the truth of the statement that one of them has to be wrong, or both of them have to be wrong. What is the point of the concept that we're trying to bring forward then? So what if one of them is wrong? Well, the point is, in each religion, they're willing to and are killing those who disagree with them and believe it's justified, and they're justified in doing so because they're right. Now, you understand? Number one, golden rule. Number two, we have to be right so we can kill you because you're wrong. Let's go back to number one. Number one, golden rule. You see anything wrong there? At some point, if we ever begin to actually get serious about the investigation of religion, we will obviously find that there will be some religions who kill with no justification. We know that you will be told that it's definitely some other religion and not your religion, but are you sure it isn't your religion that you are positive? Are you positive? Because if you're wrong, and it stops there, and you know what they're saying, you don't have to be a genius to figure out what they're saying. So they go on to marriage. And remember, we're in the appendix, and we're just going down through various different things to throw in the remaining stuff that might not have been covered, or maybe was covered but you didn't get it. So before a marriage license is given to a couple, they must see a counselor. Counselor must give each of them a questionnaire that asks each one of them to write or say 10 things that they have to have in a marriage. This is something that they're recommending now for the new government. they're saying, sit down and write 10 things that you absolutely have to have in your marriage. You have to have this from your woman. You have to have this from your man. You have to have this 10 things. They're placed in separate rooms with a desk where they can think about the question and write their answer. The counselor makes them think about what is being asked. What 10 things do you have to have in this marriage to make it work? Then the person is asked to choose 6 of the 10 things that she or he absolutely has to have in the marriage. Now they are brought back to the room where the counselor is, and they look at each other's answers. The response by each will be noted by the counselor, and you understand that all this stuff was written down. And the question at that point might be, should we be getting married? And you can understand why. If they come out with 6 things that they absolutely have to have, and each one's willing to give that with no problem, go ahead, get married. But if one of them has something that absolutely cannot be given by the other, you have to sit down and think about it a little bit at that point. If it doesn't look all that good, perhaps the counselor might suggest things that would, make you re-look at wanting to get married, or reevaluate what it is you can give or want to give. However, the choice is always theirs, and it's not any other person. Now, the couple then is asked to write down 4 more things that they would like to have in a marriage, but not have to have. That information in the questionnaires are sealed and filed away with a copy of the license to be saved until, or if the couple files for divorce, or if it is needed in counseling. Now, what do they say? They said, give me 10 things that you absolutely have to have from your potential marriage mate here. Go into your separate rooms and write it down. Come back out and they take a look at it. If both couples agree to oh yeah, I can give you that, no problem, then the counselor is going to say, go ahead and get married. If they don't agree, and then the counselor is going to say, if you have to have this in marriage and your mate here can't give that to you, then don't you kind of have to take a look at things? And that is the answers in the discussion are written down, and you'll see why. And then the counselor, when you get all done, says, what are 4 things, not counting the 6 that you have to have, what are 4 things that you would really like to have in a marriage? What are you kind of looking forward to? And they write those down, and he doesn't even talk about them. He just seals it all up, attaches it to the marriage license, says, okay, now you go out and you get on the counseling. You do what it is that you want to do. Now, the couple can, of course, happily get married if they were all agreeable. Or they can say, we're not, the lust thing has got us tackled, and we're not really compatible enough to get married, and we're not going to do it. And that's the whole intent of the thing. But the paperwork will be attached to the marriage license and be used for counseling or the divorce procedure, so that, the judge, if you will, or the counselor knows how you went into the marriage. Did you go in knowing that it probably wasn't going to work, or did you go in great, with that understanding promoted by our society, there will be fewer divorces in this country, and you can see why. The last step is to determine the wants or need to have a child and the contract for that decision. At that point, it is not known how the desire for children is going to be handled by those who would keep the population under control. But for sure, both have to sign a contract before they have a child. And that's one of the new things that they're set up to do. So the man is willing, the woman is willing, and they both contract that, yeah, they're willing. And those two will be discussed by the counselor before they are let go in the marriage, you understand? So nobody's stopping them. You didn't see anybody say the government's going to stop us from getting married. No, I never said that. Counseling beforehand, yeah, that's going to happen. Uh, you know, 10 things, and before the marriage license, then the counselor has to have 10 things that each person has to have from the other person before they get married, or have to have in the marriage. Number 2, reduce it to 6. If the two cannot give all 6, then the counselor should recommend they not get married. Now, only recommending. No, okay. And they fill in the questionnaire for the later date. Then you have space for 4 more badly needed but not have to have wants, and 4 spaces of perhaps maybe the things that you would like in a marriage. These do not have to be filled out before marriage, but are available down the line. The concept is that to have a contract written out so that the marriage grows and the lists can be negotiated to change with those sides. Number 6, that's what they're talking about. The concept is that you have a contract written out so that as marriage grows and the list can be negotiated to be changed by both or either side. What they say? They said, one of the things that we're going to use when we get into counseling for marriage problems is this sheet of paper, this questionnaire. And one of the things that happens in it is you may want to negotiate other things that you absolutely have to have in the marriage, and you say it out loud to the counselor, and they have to fill in the blanks. So the other mate, the mate on the other side of the question, knows. There's this nebulous, I don't like you. There's this real, I have to have this to be married, and you're not giving it to me. So you understand what is paperwork for trying to keep you together more important than your corporate duties. It's life. And then we move from the marriage side of it to whether you can have a baby or not, which is discussed in Book 4. And the counselor must explain the population problem to you and then recommend one child only if he can. And then you're pretty much on your own. You do the contractual things for a baby, you can have one. No problem. We're very interested in having children. Nobody knows who the people are that are going to benefit our society. So, you pretty much have to keep an open mind and keep the restrictions out of the program. So we make it possible to contract so that the man has just as many rights as a woman does. But then you can have a child, and if you will take the classes to guarantee that we know that you know exactly how to find the things that you want to have the child learn. In other words, we show you where everything is as best we can, and give any hints that you want about raising a child. And then you're out there, and you're not on your own. You can always get help. So fill out and discuss the 6-part questionnaire. Then both of them have to agree to have a baby if they want, and have a contract of what it is wanted and needed in the marriage, adding to it as they go along, understanding that we are here to make choices. So perfect marriage is not the goal. Understanding that understood, the two have to make a marriage choice and no one else. So they always want to make sure you understand that the marriage is your choice, but you have to go to a counselor. You have to take a questionnaire. You have to determine whether you can license to have a child. Those are the things that you're kind of stuck to do, but none of them keep you from getting married. So the government is not telling you you have to be married. The government is not telling you that you can or can't have a child. The government is not telling you much of anything. They pretty much want to make sure that you've got the stuff available that you might want and the information available that you might need, and then they kind of let you go with that. Okay, The Masons is the next one we're going to talk about because they're part of kind of a religion. So there is a concerted, planned, and implemented effort to stop people from going on in their education past the beginning teachings of the church. We showed you that in the U. Here your situation is you've been like on the other side of the U, and you begin to realize that people are important and what this religion's all about, and you start helping other people, and you get into the church, and you go along, and pretty soon you get to the point where you say, isn't there more to it than just that, have to be here every Sunday and maybe Sunday school and learning all this stuff and listen to the preacher? Isn't there more to it than that? And as we said in the U, there's this big chasm where there's nothing. And the Masons and the Rosicrucians were supposed to be, and other secret societies were supposed to be there to move you on past what the church teaches. Problem was there were agents hired and trained to stop this education in the not too distant past. The problem is that each organization that was meant to fulfill the task of teaching the path onward have been infiltrated by this group of agents. The agents are bright enough to slowly slide changes into the basic teaching until the original teachings are lost and the planned teachings took over. Now, if you don't understand what that means, go to the Masons. Look at their pictures of their symbols, each of them having a tremendous meaning because they've been taught what the meaning is, and they ask the Masons, they don't have a clue. What did we say? We said there were agents that were planted in these societies that were supposed to move you on, that made it so that the teachings that you had originally are lost. Those planted teachings were just a little different than the real ones, and over the years no one noticed. We have shown you how it was done with Paul and the church, but there was more. How many big football players can hardly wait to sit on a damp cloud playing a harp all day? They say, laugh. You gotta laugh. How many big football players can hardly wait to sit on a damp cloud and play a harp all day? See, that's one of the things they slipped in, and you don't realize that it was slipped in, so you think it's real. That's, you get to heaven, you get to sit on a damp cloud and play a harp all day. Not even close, but that's what they teach you. Well, find a computer game playing nerd somewhere and ask him or her to explain to you what I'm going to say next. Why? Because it's an extremely good example, but if you don't play computer games, you don't have a clue what I'm talking about. So I'm going to say it, and you can take it to a nerd and say, what is he saying? And when the nerd gets done laughing, he'll probably explain it to you. What do you know or think you know about heaven what you know or think you know about heaven is comparable to playing Zork and think you're playing the very best game there is when Elder Scrolls V Skyrim is being played just down the street. Now, you might not have a clue what we're talking about there, but your nerd friend will. Zork was the very best game at one time. Elder Scrolls V Skyrim now, pretty hard to beat. That's the difference between what you think you know about Father's heaven and the reality of his heaven. Now, you tell a nerd that, and they, I see what the point is. That they're not even close. They're not even close. And what we're saying is, you think this is heaven, Zork, and in reality, it's Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. And what's the difference between the two? Unbelievable difference. It will not be a damp cloud, and you won't be playing the harp. And that's what is being said here. If you knew, there would be no room at this. If you only knew there would be, if you only knew that I guess, if you knew what the difference between those two was, there'd be no room at the get out gate. Now you'd be, let me out of here. I don't want to be here. Please, please. I didn't know that. I had no idea. Damn cloud playing a harp. That's nothing I want to do. But oh my God, this Father's creation. Oh, I want to go there. I want to be there. I want to do that. So, somebody's been in there lying, and it worked. So we go on to see how it was done with the Masons and the Rosicrucians. You have to understand the church, the Masons and the Rosicrucians were all meant to teach those who had reached a certain point in the development how to go on. Actually, the church too. The need was to get beyond the understanding of the people who had realized that they were not alone. Those ones at the bottom of the U were not alone. Their Father was not. There was a God, and they needed to help other people, and other people were very important, and they weren't the only ones that were important, and there was a God. They needed to be led to the path that enabled them to go on. You have seen the failure of the church, and boy, that's a total failure. So next we'll take a look at the Masons. The Masons are symbol-based secret society. Each symbol in their collection has a special meaning. The meaning comes from the teaching handed down from those who knew. They knew, and they had the task of transmitting the information down through time to the future humans. That was their job. But understand that they knew it had to get through all the massive destruction and restriction and actually the misinformation that is now laid out for us in this day and age. But back in an earlier time, the Catholic Church kind of lost their way, and they had to end up being secret societies because they couldn't survive the disasters that the Catholic Church caused. So they chose the symbols that could be easily passed down, and then secret societies, if you joined it, would get in there and teach you to understand what those symbols meant. As time went by, the method worked very well. In fact, it worked so well that the infiltration of false information given by those agents that I talked about above was started right here. The masters and high-level Masons were pictured in the temple and were honored in the rituals. Understand, the masters and high-level members were pointed to as being the most important, not the symbols. So you have pictures of the masters on the walls of the Masonic temples, not the symbols anymore. And the symbols were, do you know what this symbol means? Oh, no, okay, by the time you're done, 3 years from now, you'll know exactly what it means, and that moves you on to a higher level on the U, which is what you're supposed to be doing. The degrees of the levels became most important, not the information. Soon everything was changed. At that point, there was almost no Mason who understood the symbols, and no Mason who was moving on up and out as was designed. Boy, that's for sure. They're supposed to have the education and the test to see that they have an understanding of what's being taught. Now they just go through the rituals of each level, and again, the degree without any understanding. An example, they do not really, for example, as an example, they do not understand the four stations in their meeting hall are for the worship and the petition stations of the higher powers. They have no idea that that's what that is. Those non-human entities with great powers just under the top it. So do you hear what we're saying there? We're saying they lost it so much that the 4 stations that they have are to petition and worship the higher powers, the 4 north, south, east, west, the ones that are worshipped all over Earth until people realize what they're doing. And those stations are in the temple of the Masons. Whoa, Well, those stations should never be in the temple or ever, even in the building, but the Masons do not know that because the higher powers at some point gave the leaders something they wanted very badly. Thus, the leaders gave them the place in the temple. The agents recommended asking the higher powers at that time, and the request was granted. In the long run, things will always turn out bad when man begins to deal with the higher powers. And if the Mason hierarchy had been doing their due diligence studying, they would have known that right off the bat. What are they saying? They're saying if you deal with the higher powers, which are just right it, they'll give you things. You'll get the please give me blah blah blah. They'll give them to you, but the problem is that the end result is always bad. The higher powers are never there for the human. The higher powers are there for the humor and the agony and pain and the misery and suffering because they feed on it. So after the leaders got the gifts they wanted so bad from the higher powers, and at the suggestion of the agents, they moved to place the 4 stations of the higher powers right in the temple. If they knew, if they had only known, then we go to the tree of life and chakra symbols and ask what they're for or represent. Of course, none of the supporting members understand, and when asking the hierarchy, they say they're the symbol of the path of enlightenment. Next question is, how many enlightened members do you have? Here you have a secret society, and they have all these. If they get rid of the pictures of the people who have, made to the top of the Masons, and you put the symbols back up, the next question you have is, what are these? And they say these are the symbols of the path to enlightenment. So the next question you would ask is, how many enlightened members do you have? There's a pause as the members are reviewed, and none become the answer. The actual use of the present day is the raising of the emotional powers to a level that will manifest some temporal want here in this jail, in this life on earth, in this jail. We say, having talked to them forever, we feel that it's a jail too. Then we move to the 6-pointed star and ask what that symbol stands for. They know that one. It is as above, so below. Well, what does that mean? What you build above is formed below, and vice versa. Who builds above? Blank look. Okay. What have you built here that you feel you need to have above? More blank looks. Nothing. What do you mean you build down here? So basically, you have no idea what the symbol means either. How about the Eastern Star? That's a 5-pointed star for your female half of the Masons, and they use that as their symbol. Do you know what that represents? The closest I could get was the Eastern Star symbol is a complex one, and it is said to represent the Star of Bethlehem, symbolizing the descent of the spirit into matter. Each point of the star represents a good religious trait symbolized by the woman in the Bible who had the traits. In actuality, it was a witch's star, or symbol representing the manifestation of some spell into reality. Now, in reality, that's what it is. Now, what did they say? In reality, and I don't know why they told you that. I don't know why you're allowed to know that. But anyway, or to put it into Masonic lost understanding, it is truly the 6-pointed star with a hidden gate or portal, through which those things created in the other realm can be manifested here by passing through the gate or portal, the hidden point. The hidden point. Witches. Masons are witches? No wonder some people think that the Masonic organization is evil. What did they say? They're telling you all kinds of stuff here that I don't do. Just disregard that. You don't need to know that. So we move to the Rosicrucians and their loss. The Rosicrucians are a study-based organization. That means they gain those things offered by them in the study course. There will be all manner of pieces of information given, and then a questionnaire is sent to make sure you understand the concept given. When you get to the chemical marriage part, you're supposed to understand that there's a marriage of the soul to the monkey, so the monkey understands why he's here and what to do. Therein lies the failure. Who in the Rosicrucians can say they've reached this point? If none of the Rosicrucians have lost the understanding and have failed the total purpose of the organization, if none, that's what they're saying. If none of them have reached enlightenment, if you will, or the chemical marriage, then and you ask them, and they'll say, "No, we're not doing too well with it." From what can be seen, failure is the result of the present organization. The actual process to accomplish this goal seems to be hidden by them in the courses, and perhaps they no longer know the process. It is strange that the Masons also had the marriage understanding, but they seem to have lost it also. What we have then is the church failing to send people who are worshiping there on to the final destination. In fact, they honor the ones who do their best to lure those who are in the prison of this world out of the path and down and back. Don't go there. It's evil. But don't go on and get to where you're supposed to be, which is out of the prison and back to Father. Moving to the Masons, we have the same problem. A wonderful club with their handshakes and their business support, but not an organization to be joined with the intent of learning how to go on. Then we come to the Rosicrucians, and again we see no movement onward. Wonderful club with all the secrets on how to do better here, but no teaching related to going on. So as the book said, there's an effort to stop anyone from going on and getting back to Father. We have infiltration of clever agents who have the duty that are only a small part of the whole plan to stop us. What does that mean? For each agent had a small duty to perform, and once accomplished, they were to become just another one of the Masons or Rosicrucians with no other duties to perform. These agents were given the task. Slip this into the religious organization of the Masons or the Rosicrucians, and it'll change it slightly. And once you're done with that, that's it. You got nothing else to do. Just a regular old Mason or Rosicrucian. It can easily be seen that desired change would take time, lifetimes in fact. So it must be understood that whoever is doing the changing gains not in his or her lifetime, or his or her lifetime is much longer than ours. Now, understanding that might be the most important part of this whole article. What did they say down there? They said, understand that these agents planted changes in the organization to make them kind of be useless, but it wasn't going to be in their lifetime, so it might have been one or two lifetimes. And the question always was, who's gaining then? If it isn't in your lifetime, there's no gain for you. Who's gaining? And they said, now that understanding might be the most important part of this whole article. So there you are sitting there saying, what do they mean by that? They're trying to tell you something, and they're not really coming around and saying it. So what are they trying to say? And what they're trying to say is that the situation that you have isn't going to accomplish anything for one lifetime. So, well, okay, what they're actually saying is whoever's benefiting is going to live multiple lifetimes, or going to reincarnate, or going to benefit down the road quite a long ways, and that's something to question and wonder about.